As planned yesterday, we began sending water to our above-ground storage tanks and later to the distribution pipes throughout the city. As we have done this, citizens have experienced a return of water service throughout the majority of the city. Those who have not seen a return of service can expect it over the next day or so. Leaks are being reported as we expected. As we receive information about the leaks, they are being controlled promptly, either by repair or shutting off the supply. We have had one main line break and it has been repaired. As service is restored, the citizens are being asked to conserve water until notified otherwise. A boil order is still in effect and will remain until further notice. HEB and Walmart, along with countless individuals, have donated water and sanitation items to citizens during this process. The Red Cross and CERT teams have provided manpower to aid in the distribution of these donations, including a CERT team from Mart High School, which is right back there, and y'all need to meet them. TCEQ has been on site at the water plant throughout the day, providing technical assistance and oversight for the repairs that have been made and the expected repairs in the near future. The Texas Department of Emergency Management and HOTCOG have been by our side throughout the response to this incident and have provided guidance with filing the appropriate paperwork requesting formal assistance from the state and the federal governments.
Yes, there is what's called a short form on that, and we have that at our engineers right now filling out the technical data for that grant. We expect to have that grant submitted by the early part of next week. The fortunate part of that grant is that it's a reimbursement grant. We can spend funds now, and providing we do get that grant, they will be reimbursed out of that grant fund. We don't have to wait to do work until we hear about that grant.
And we heard there's no backlog at USDA. That once you're done, they can get it to you.
Both Congressman Flores' office and Senator Cornyn's office said if there was any hiccup on the federal side, that they would be there to offer support.
And do you have any idea, on that one issue, how much money it would be? They said six figures, but do you know how much?
That's actually, there are two grants, one for $150,000, one up to $500,000. And we're going to have to work with our engineers to see what portions of these repairs fall under what grant. We'll apply for both grants if we have appropriate expenditures within both line items. So that's a potential of $650,000 total if we have incurred that kind of expense, and if we can make all of our expenses qualify for those. And frankly, I don't think unfortunately, we can't get reimbursement for the difficulty of our citizens, but for the repair of the plant, and I don't think that'll go up to $650,000, quite frankly, but we're going to apply for all that we can because we certainly don't want this to happen again.
Both those grants from USDA?
Yes, that's an emergency USDA grant.
Are residents going to be expected to pay anything on their next water bill?
Frankly, that's a discussion that the City Council is going to have at their regular council meeting of next Tuesday night.
And what about the school district? Because I know that they've closed, they're going to reopen on Monday. How are they going to make up the days that they have to close for?
I'm afraid you'd have to discuss that with the superintendent. The city doesn't operate the schools, and I can't speak for them.
They haven't been a school teacher and administrator before. Okay, okay. Normally what happens like that when they have to make up days, they have snow days or that they don't use and they can make them up on that day, or they may have to cut into holiday times. So.
You talk about the repairs. What types of repairs does the plant need?
Well, currently the plant is, the main failure of the plant was a plume of sludge that went into the filter system. We ultimately had to take the plant completely offline and hand clean the filters, and that has allowed us to restore the water. However, the filters, especially in skid 100, we have two skids, the plant is split into two sections. Skid 100, those filters were our worst filters to begin with, and two are the ones that have received the most damage from this sludge plume. So the new filters that will be arriving, we will, once the system is fully up and charged and people have water again, one sled should be able to keep water pressure throughout the town. That will be skid 200. We'll take skid 100 completely offline, put in new filters, do all the repairs necessary to not only fix the water supply problem that we're having currently, but the boil water notice that we were on, which precipitated the repairs that actually caused the damage. So we actually have a lot of work to do to repair both sleds, but we're going, our goal is to get sled 100 with new filters, all of the repairs necessary to take care of all of the violations that TCEQ found when they put us on a boil water notice. And once that sled is up and running and we are able to flush the system, we should be able to operate the entire city on that sled, remove the boil water notice, and then we'll have to completely repair sled 200, which has been limping along gamefully and getting us out of this situation. Then that sled will have to be fully repaired. But our primary goal is to make sure that we have, first, we have water pressure for everybody in town, and second, we'll be able to lift the boil water notice and we'll be back to normal. Actually, that was actually planned maintenance, and the filters had been ordered about 8 weeks ago, and just by coincidence, they're scheduled to be delivered tomorrow, which is a fortuitous circumstance for us because that's normally a 6 to 8 week delivery period for those. So that was just a lucky coincidence in a very unlucky situation overall. A full postmortem will be done, and whether it was a flaw in our operations, our standard operating procedures, past or current employees, we will get to the bottom of it. But at this point, we're not worried about any of that until the people have water. And then we will find out what caused this, and we will make sure, I will make sure as the city manager and the mayor, and I'm sure the elected officials will tell you, we will make sure that this does not happen again, that proper maintenance will be adhered to, because it was obvious there was some lack of maintenance from the past that actually caused this problem that our current employees were not fully aware of, because you come into a new job, you assume things are operating the way they're supposed to operate rather than the way they have been operated. And that was one of the issues that caused this problem. So we will definitely be taking care of that, but that has not been, certainly not a priority at this point.
I would just like to say on that point that we are extremely fortunate to have hired Scott Fornish 5 months ago. And we had been without a public works director for I'm not sure how long, but far too long. And I cannot imagine how big a disaster this would have been, worse than it was, if he had not been there and his expertise helped us get through this. So I can't say enough thank you for him.
So right now, as we speak, 80%, 90%, how many people have water now?
Do we know that? How many?
I would say the majority of the people are getting some water pressure. Probably not to the TCEQ requirements of 32 PSI at their faucet, but I would say the majority of the people unless if they are near a leak that we have not yet identified or have not yet been able to get to, have some water coming into their systems so that, but quite frankly, we'll have a much better handle on that tomorrow morning as the system increases in pressure and we can see whether or not that pressure holds.
You've said in the last few days that second concern besides the plant, once you got the plant going, are the pipes. And over the last couple of years, we've been covering stories here about, looking for government help and support to replace these just dilapidated systems.
Yes.
And, which occurred before y'all even got here. Has some of those repairs started, or will that be able to be addressed in the future? Because people in Marlin are asking that question.
Well, it has to be addressed, because you continue to lose water if those pipes are not, some of those pipes have been there since the early part of the 19th century. Yes, it has to be addressed, and Senator Birdwell several days ago was telling me that he wanted to sit down and talk with us about getting the funding to take care of that kind of infrastructure. So and that's another issue that we, so many people are coming forward with wanting to help and with ideas on where to get funding and bringing all this to the forefront. So sometimes disasters bring forth good things, and you have to go through bad things to get there. But fortunately, we have a lot of people from the state level on down, the governor's office. They're looking for funds. Everybody's looking for funds to help us, and fortunately or unfortunately, we qualify for a lot of them. So.
Hey, when you say the early part of the 19th century, are you saying 1800?
I'm sorry, 20th century.
Okay.
Early part of the
All right,
20th
so
century.
they're over 100 years old. 100 years old.
In
Yeah.
parts of the city, yes.
In parts
What's
of
that?
it.
And I do want to apologize, we were a little late getting started, and one of the reasons why, and the mayor doesn't even know this, is that I was talking to the Water Development Board. We currently have a grant from the Water Development Board, and we've been replacing a lot of fire hydrants. And we have about $100,000 left on that grant right now that has not been expended, and we are going to shift that money directly into the water plant right now through approval of the Water Development Board. And I meet with the Water Development Board next Wednesday or Thursday on doing the next application that, well, one, will let us go back to doing the rehab that we had already scheduled and bring in those additional funds, providing, of course, we would prefer all grant funds. The Water Development Board, some of it is loan, so we'll be matching that with the USDA grants, but I will be meeting with them next week. But I've already received permission today to transfer some of those monies from the current grant into the water plant from the hydrant.
How much?
About $100,000 was left in that grant.
Well, people are going to want answers. That's just common nature, and they deserve to have answers, and we're going to give them answers. I suspect they'll be a little happier because they have water and that something has been done, but they still want answers, just as John was asking the questions, and they deserve to have answers. We need some answers. We need to know why that this has happened, and we need to know what we need to do to prevent it from happening anymore.
And the information we get at our 4 o'clock incident meeting will be, I will be giving that, and the mayor will be giving that to the city council at their special council meeting at 5:30. So thank you all for coming.